any abilities that a Sentinel has up whenever you ult them, like a tripwire or whatever, is going to be taken down. And I'm like, okay guys, let's walk up quietly here. And then my ISO's like, alright. It's like, oh, okay, the enemy team's like, alright, they're gonna be mid guys, like, because it's so obvious whenever, I mean, you know, the shield's too good to not activate, but sometimes you want to be a little quiet, right? But you really want to be communicating with your teammates, like, okay, I'm gonna vulnerable here, can you shock dart this whenever the round starts, whenever you hear them? So it's like, okay, yeah, sure, alright, 3, 2, 1, and then you guys do it, like, about the same time, so the enemies can't really react. And that's going to be like one of the main ways you really want to use this ability. Hey guys, so in today's video, I'm going to be giving you 5 in-depth ability tips for ISO to help you better understand how to most effectively play him. So right now, the new episode is starting. ISO is going to be receiving a nerf, and this nerf, although it does change a little bit, it doesn't really target the core issue with him right now, which is his shield. So this is going to be a great time for you to actually learn ISO. So the first tip I have for you guys is 1, activate your shield before you ult, which most of you probably already do. But the other thing you probably might not do right now is whenever you ult, so activate the shield, right? You ult, you're going to want to hide behind one of the barriers. No distraction. So you're going to want to pick either left or right side and just kind of sit here and wait, right? And so why do you want to do that? You want to do that because you don't want your shield to be broken. So good players, what they're going to do whenever you get ulted, right? What I do whenever I'm against an ISO is I try to peek out, take 1 shot at the body for ISO and try to break his shield. And then whenever the shields drop, it's actually a fair fight, right? Because the chances of him one-tapping me whenever I'm peeking just for that 1 tap in the body to break his shield are going to be very unlikely. So how you counter this is ISO is activate the shield, ult, no distraction, and simply choose one side to hide behind and just wait for the barrier to drop. And then it's simply going to be, the fight's going to be in your favor, right? The vast majority of fights you'll be winning unless you're simply whiffing, right? Because you just have more time to kill the enemy with your shield up than they have to kill you. And by hiding, you prevent them the opportunity of breaking your shield before the actual fight happens when the barriers drop. So make sure you guys are doing that, and let's go ahead and move on to the next tip. The next tip that I have for you on ISO, which I would consider to be second most important behind the tip that I just showed you, is how to use ISO's vulnerables, or as it's called, undercuts. So this ability, it's this one that you throw out and it makes them take additional damage. I think it might be 2 times as much damage, which is extremely powerful, but it's only really that powerful whenever you are combining it with other teammates' abilities. So let's think what agents are we most likely to combo this with. It's probably going to be like a Sova and a Raze, but you can combo it with other abilities like, you know, Killjoy Molly, Phoenix Molly, but those are going to be harder to coordinate, and you don't have a lot of Phoenixes on your team either, and most Killjoys are not going to be like, oh yeah, I'll throw my Molly in here and just use it, right? So Shock Dart and Raze Nade, they can pretty easily one-shot people, and if you notice you're playing with a teammate like Gecko, you can use that Molly. That is great. But you really want to be communicating with your teammates, like, okay, I'm gonna vulnerable here. Can you shock dart this whenever the round starts, whenever you hear them? So it's like, okay, yeah, sure. All right, 3, 2, 1, and then you guys do it like about the same time, so the enemies can't really react. And that's gonna be like one of the main ways you really want to use this ability. Obviously, you can use this whenever you want to just take a fight, but it's gonna be a little bit better whenever you combine it with a damaging ability from a teammate. Another way that you can use undercut is just whenever your team wants to itchery, you can be like, it's kind of like, think of it as like Omen Blind, but instead of blinding someone, it just makes them take more damage. And it's honestly like, it's good for killing people, but it's also really good for just making people feel like uncomfortable, or, you know, like they're at a disadvantage. So it's kind of like a mental thing. So like if you go just like this, it hits all of Jin as your team is running in, like, okay, I'm gonna vulnerable everyone and go in. And that's another way you can use this ability. You can also use it when people are either planting or defusing the spike. So if you want to peek, again, you can even do this whenever they tap to defuse the spike and then just wait, because they're probably going to get off of it because they expect you to swing. You know, that might not always work, but again, guys, I'll show you one more example of how you can do this on B-site, and you can do this on a variety of maps, really. So again, you can be like, especially because Sova plays B on this map, you could be like, okay, Sova, let's combo our abilities here. All right, 3, 2, 1, and then he shock darts through the window as well, and you can one-shot people because the very center of Sova's shock dart does 75 damage, and if the vulnerable allows you to do 2x damage, if you hit him right in the middle, you can actually one-shot people, which is really strong. And if you're not one-shotting people, you're still doing a good chunk of damage, and maybe even to multiple people if you guys time it correctly. So guys, let's go ahead and move on to the next tip. So the next really important ability tip that I can give you for ISO is going to be regarding his shield. So ISO's shield is obviously really strong, however it just got a nerf. Its duration is much shorter now at 12 seconds, which is still a fairly long time. It gives you enough time to actually like entry and go to site. And I don't think this nerf is really all that crazy, but you also cannot recharge it, so just keep that in mind. But this tip is going to have to do with how whenever you activate the shield, it makes a sound. So enemies can actually hear this for like a pretty big radius, so like they're gonna know where you are before you're going there, okay? So if you're trying to play contact with your teammates, which basically means you're trying to walk up quietly, be careful about activating your shield, because there's times whenever I'm playing and I'm like, okay guys, let's walk up quietly here, and then my ISO's like, alright. It's like, oh okay, the enemy team's like, alright, they're gonna be mid guys, like, because it's so obvious whenever, I mean, you know, the shield's too good to not activate, but sometimes you want to be a little quiet, right? Sometimes you want to kind of let yourself work before you activate the shield, right? And because sometimes they're not going to be expecting you to be up in this tube and kill you from here or here. So instead of activating your tube in a really good, or activating your shield in a really good spot, like all the way up the kitchen, whenever they have no sentinel, maybe wait a second to activate it until you get a kill and then activate it, right? So, you know, this can be applied to a variety of maps. Like if, for example, you guys want to walk up B, if you want to walk up A, if you want to walk up anywhere on any map quietly, or if you just know that you're in a good spot. This doesn't have to be like at the start of the round. Sometimes you might have held your shield for whatever reason until like later. You know, maybe you're in this spot here. You might kind of intuitively understand why you don't want to shield here, but you shouldn't be shielding here. And if you have the thought to, then don't, right? Because it's just giving away your location. This is actually a pretty extreme example. I don't think any of you guys would actually activate your shield here, because you understand this is kind of like a hidden spot. But also if you're like mid and they don't have a sentinel like a killjoy or a chamber or anyone watching it from boiler, you can walk all the way down here for free. If there's no one in kitchen, you can literally get a free round or two from just doing this. Whereas if you activate the shield, again, they're going to hear you from a big radius here. I don't know exactly how big the radius is, but it's probably about as big as I pinged right there. So keep that in mind, guys, and let's go ahead and move on to the next step. We have ISO's wall. It's like his bigger shield, not the one he puts around himself, but the one that he throws out like this. And after timing it, it lasts about 6 seconds from when you activate it to when it like fully dissipates, and that's a pretty good time. This ability is not super strong. It's probably one of his weaker abilities in terms of like just how much utility it brings to ISO and his team. But if you really want to make the most out of this ability, try to find a wide open area that you can push out with the wall with your team. So, for example, this is a really great area for this, down to A. And you can activate this from a few different spots. This does go through the wall. I would recommend not throwing it from this far back, but just to show you guys that it can't go through the wall. You can see you can throw this for your team through the wall. And it goes through walls as well. So you can also throw it from here. You see also it kind of goes up, stuff like this. But what you want to do is basically throw it and kind of run up with it with your team. I literally just went over something there. And then you can see if this is like smoked, if this is smoked here, then this is like really strong, because it prevents you from getting like opt, just like your shield does. ISO is a very strong counter to the op if you know you're against someone who's going to be opping, which you never really do. But if you can, try to get up a little closer, because 6 seconds is not actually the longest time. So if you can actually get up here first and then throw this, you can kind of run up like this with your team, clear to the left, and then, you know, that goes much farther. So this is just really good for taking space, basically. It can also be good for like faking people out if they're about to start defusing, for example. If the spike is like planted here, you can just throw this down and then kind of like do a fake and walk over this way, because they might expect you to be up behind the shield. So hopefully that makes sense. Anyways, guys, this ability is pretty straightforward. Just use it on long, open areas like these, and it'll pay off. So hope you guys enjoy this tip. See you in the next tip. Then final tip for ISO's abilities is also going to have to do with his ult. So if you guys were not aware, whenever you ult someone, they actually can't use any abilities, and all of their health, including all of your health, comes back. So any abilities they have activated before, like an ISO shield or whatever, is going to be available in the ult. But any abilities that a sentinel has up whenever you ult them, like a tripwire or whatever, is going to be taken down. So this is gonna be really important for you guys to attempt to do. So on Sunset, on B site, at least in my rank and probably in your guys' rank, you're gonna have a lot of Cypher players that put a trip here, and it's just really hard to get out because the trip goes here and like here. It's just really hard to shoot it without being like super exposed. You have to walk out like this far, and at this point, you know, like you can get shot from here, back here, close here, in this corner. So if you can somehow ult the Cypher, it's going to take some guessing to figure out where he is, and if he swaps around, he could be market, he could be back here, he could be back here, he could be all the way back in Boba, but you can see this ult reaches really far. So if you can hit him, you have like a basically 33% chance. If your Sova can drone and see him somehow, or if your Sova can dart like back here and see him or see nothing, then you know it's probably market or it's over here. You ult, you take his trip down, you can hear it go down, your team can go out. And you guys get sight, because more than likely a Cypher will be like one of the only people here, if maybe just him and someone else. At least that's generally how it's played. Another thing is, guys, if you're the last person alive with a teammate, so it's a 2v1, you can just ult the person and the round's over, because even if you don't kill him in your ult, your teammate could just run up to wherever you ulted him from. Say it's like right here, your teammate could just sit here, wait, and then shoot him, right? And, you know, unless there's an absolute whiff that happens, that's going to be a secured round. So in 2v1 scenarios, or 3v1 or whatever, if it's like, you know, last round, or it's you guys are losing really hard, just ult the person, it's going to be a guaranteed secured round. You can also ult people off the spike. So hopefully that makes sense. And also, you can, you know, if you ult the Cypher and you know exactly where he is, you can tell your teammate to run up and kill him before, like, just in case you lose or something like that. That's not usually going to happen too much, but yeah, these are some tips for your ult. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any more questions about ISO or future videos, let me know in the comments down below, and I'll see you guys very soon.